Everyone, I am so excited to introduce you to today's super special guest. Today we have Linda Calvin, who is a over 20-year veteran of the private IT sector, where she's led global teams to implement digital and mobile application strategy, data privacy, and social media policy. She is from the east side of Indianapolis and currently serves as the Chief Impact Officer for Reboot Representation. Before taking on this role, she held a number of roles, including serving as the former IT Sector Vice President for the School of IT at Ivy Tech Community College. And in her current role, she collaborates with the Reboot Tech Coalition partners to create and support cultures that retain, attract, and advance Black, Latina, and Native American, or BLNA, women in tech. Linda has a bachelor's degree in journalism from Butler University, a private institution that's in Indianapolis, and a Juris Doctorate from Indiana University School of Law. She is also a certified Scrum Master. So if you don't know, now you know. Some other claims to fame. Linda has served on several Indianapolis and Indiana nonprofit boards, including the Indiana Youth Group, which is an organization that serves the needs of LGBTQ youth and child advocacy. She currently serves as a board member and the Executive Women's Forum Director for Women and High Tech, which is the largest female in STEM organization in Indiana. She, beyond that, is a member of the Digital Fluency Advisory Council for Franklin College, the Six Sigma Racial Equity Institute of Indianapolis, and the United Way of Central Indiana Technology Committee, along with Rooted School Indianapolis. Woo, okay, that's a lot for all of us to take in, but thank you so much for being with us today, Linda. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I can't believe when you said all that, it's like, I do all that?
I was like, she's busy.
Did, done. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you take time to help organizations like ourselves improve their opportunities. So we're so grateful that you took time out of your incredibly busy schedule to be here with us.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get into where you are now and what you're doing, we always like to begin with trying to understand more about your past and where you've come from. So what was it like growing up in East Indy?
Well, I grew up, and I'm not going to date myself. So anybody can do math, right? So I grew up at a time when it was in the 70s. How about we put it like that? And I grew up in an all-white family. So my parents married. My mother's white, my father's Black. They married before the Loving versus Virginia decision, the Supreme Court decision. My mom was married before she married my father and had my 3 older siblings who are white. And then they met and married in 1964 and had me. And we moved to Indianapolis several years later. And she ultimately remarried many years later to a white man and had my little brother. So I was an only in my family.
Wow.
I was an only in the side of town I grew up in. I was the only in my church, in my school, in my neighborhood, and among my friends. So it was challenging growing up at that time and understanding or not understanding that I'm part of my family, but I don't look like them. But I thought I was them, especially in church, so you're not, I was Sister Petty's granddaughter or Brother Petty's daughter, the pastor, or Sister Charlotte's daughter, the organist. And then when I started going to school is when I really realized that, I'm different. And a lot of kids didn't like me, and they were mean. Kids, they can sometimes be really awesome, and sometimes they're just mean. So it was challenging at the time, but I will tell you that I absolutely adored school, and I had teachers who loved me And I was an overachiever, so I would do my homework in class, which endeared me even more to students, right? Because I'm the goody two-shoes. Yeah, right. But I figured out in fourth grade how to make that work to my advantage because, this sounds terrible, but it worked to my advantage because when you don't fit in and people don't like you, you're trying to find a way to fit in. So I figured out that I could help them with their homework, and that way I would be in the in crowd. So it was a challenging time, but you grow through what you go through. Right. And I think the reason that I have a lens that I have today is because I walk through all of that.
Man, that is a profound lens to walk through, because we talk about people being the only, like in college and things like that, but you started off the only. You've had all of this as part of your growing up and shaping your experience. So I'm curious, like in school, were you influenced or encouraged to do things that, how certain times they have like the good students who they push to do, the accelerated things, and then the rest of the class, like, did you have any sort of interactions like that where, you had this aptitude and they pushed you towards that?
I did from a couple of teachers, and one was my fourth grade teacher, and I still remember her name, Mrs. Cynical. And
that's her name?
Mrs. Cynical was her name. And that's
wow.
how I learned to speak French in fourth grade, because I was an only and I was geeky and loved school. Then there were times when, instead of going to recess, I would sit in a classroom with another little girl. Her name was Sandy, and she and I would learn French from Mrs. Cynical, which we just kept playing that nerd card. Right. And so we learned, so we would do that during, recess, which was fun. I also used to read books about volcanoes. I have no idea what that was about, but I went through a volcano phase, and there is no tie. I have never examined it. There's probably something in there. We can ask my husband later. But my fourth grade teacher would always encourage me to do more. And I will share this with you. I wrote a play once. So you're speaking to someone that has an off Broadway play called The Late Easter Bunny.
Okay.
So
okay. You got to tell us about this.
I wrote it when in fourth grade, and I don't even know why. I used to write poetry, short stories, plays. And so I wrote this play about the late Easter Bunny. And it was really just that, you go by lived experience and imagination. And so I wrote this play, and I got the popular girls who didn't necessarily like me, but they wanted to be and star in my play. And so put the play on for Mrs. Cynical, and she thought it was so good that she had us put the play on for all of third grade and all of the fourth grade. So, there's some Sondheim happening here. But it's funny because somebody said, "Oh, I bet you were the star, right?" And I was like, I was not. I had a cameo. I was the one writing the scripts and making the puppets dance. I loved that. But, everybody assumed, they're like, "Oh, Linda, you probably just wanted to be the star." And I was like, no, I wrote it. I just wanted everybody to act according to how I told them. And it was the one and only time I got to tell all the girls, no, read that line again.
Man, so you had leadership qualities from a very early age.
I think so, with my off Broadway play.
Delegation,
yes,
creativity. I'm loving it. It makes a whole lot of sense. If you know Linda, it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Okay, so, some people might wonder, you have a degree in journalism. So what inspired that? What led you down the journalism path?
The writing. So I wrote so much as a kid, and short stories, and was always writing some kind of a story. I wanted to write a book. I wrote poetry when I was in junior high school. I was part of debate team and speech team, original poetry and oratory. And so I naturally just, I wrote little skits I wrote a fashion show once for a French club I belonged to. So that fourth grade French led to me being in French club in junior high school and high school. And I wrote a fashion show where we wore like paper bags that we decorated and we walked down a runway. So I was always writing and creative writing. And so when I finally got to a space where, I'm first generation in my family and I didn't go the traditional path. So I didn't go to college right out of high school. But when I finally got there, it was like writing is a passion. And so I aspired to be, I never wanted to be an anchor or anything like that, but I wanted to write. And so that's what I took is I majored in journalism and I wanted to be in public affairs and affect legislation and write. So that's why I selected journalism. It was always strong for me. And I aspired for a while to be an actress and a playwright. So all of those writing skills were going to come together. So journalism just seemed logical to me.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
you
we
mentioned.
have to back up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Go ahead, Kyla.
Yeah, I was gonna say you mentioned being a non-traditional student. So, like, what did you do between graduating from high school and like what led? 'Cause a lot of people want to go back to school, or not even go back, want to do college after an extended period out of school, but they get discouraged from if either it's I haven't taken a test in so long, or these kids don't know anything. Like, what made you want to go back, and like what gave you that drive?
So I actually had an opportunity to go to college right out of high school. And I told my mom no. I was too interested in hanging out with uninspired and lazy people.
Oh.
That's how I summarize it. Uninspired and lazy people. And so I worked. And finally, when I got my very first job working in tech, it was like, okay, I want to go to school now. And now I'm ready. I felt like I was mature enough to tackle it because I had to learn a lot with the new job. So I thought, well, if I could do this, I can do anything. And so that's how I restarted, and I started going to IU for a computer technology degree. And then I got another job where they said, oh, well, we'll pay for your college. And it was like, okay, I'm going to stop full stop right now and do my year working at this company and then take advantage of their tuition assistance. And so I did. And once that happened, that's when I started journalism. So I had started down a path of computer technology and then did a course correction to journalism. It's very strange. I zigged and zagged trying to find where I wanted to go. But the reason I wanted to go back was, education opens doors.
Yeah.
And I saw that when I had my first really cool job, I saw that the way I was going to go through and wind through the organization to be more is that I was going to have to go to school to do it. And I liked it. And I took advantage of all the things that this company said, hey, you could take advantage of tuition assistance. And I took advantage of every single thing they had. And that's why I went back.
Yeah, that is definitely an uncommon path for people. Some people don't think of using, because college loans are just out of this world right now. If you're someone who has to pay for college, but people don't think of, hey, get this job and then make use of their tuition assistance so you can learn on the clock on somebody else's dime.
That's exactly right. And they paid, and I went to the most expensive school I could find in it, and they changed the policy after I graduated from Butler. They changed the policy because they're like, okay, you did all the things. And it was like, I did
yes,
all
I did.
the things.
You offered all the
all
things.
the
money. Yeah, so I know like not every job offers, right, tuition assistance. And then some have stipulations where it's like you can only take a class a semester or something like that. Did you have any restrictions on So they changed the policy after you came through. So
He
that
changed it after I graduated.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's great, right? Like that you were able to manage both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So got a journalism degree. Were you still working for the company?
I was. So when I earned my journalism undergrad, I was at Dow. At the time, it was Dow Elanco, and it became Dow AgriSciences. So the ag business for Dow Chemical. Okay. I was working full time. I went to a college that didn't have, serve a non-traditional student. So I would go to class in the morning, then go to work. And I had to actually take gym class. Right? I had to take gym class.
I would be like, if y'all don't get out of my face with this.
I did. I had to take gym class. So I took it, and I took yoga classes, and so I was driving to school, take class. I'd drive back to work. Then I would leave at lunchtime, take my other class, drive back to work. And then I would drive back in the late afternoon, and take another class. So it was really hard. And there were times when I was in tears because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this because I was tired.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, my role at Dow kept growing because I kept learning. And so as I learned, then they would be like, Linda, there's an opportunity over here. And I was like, I'll take it. Are you sure you want this? And I was like, give it to me right now. And so, I was chair of a United Way committee for 3 years, and I was over here doing this, plus studying, plus learning new technology. Intranet was a new thing when I was there. And then I learned internet. And then it was like, well, Linda, we have this opportunity for you to learn Dreamweaver, but you're kind of busy. And I was like, no, give it to me. And so, I just kept taking it in, but it was all awesome because I got to learn and grow at the same time. So there were tears. There were times when I'm like, I need to go for a walk, or I need to go to the mall and stare at stuff and eat Annie Ann's pretzels. There were times when I did that, but what I say is every once in a while I take a knee, you rent the space, don't live there. Mm-hmm. And so every once in a while I had to do that, but it all worked beautifully. It was like I don't know if I don't want to be as granola crunchy to say it's fate, but it really felt like that.
I was going to say, as you were talking about your trajectory, I'm like, if doing the most was a person.
That's exactly why I said what I said after I read her bio. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to manage it, right? I mean, and I think that's the one thing, and especially I think as Black women, we're doing this, we're learning, we're side hustling, we're always doing something. But, so we do have to take better care of ourselves, I think, all of us, no matter what. But for me, it was a way to learn and maximize the education and the experience and marry them together. And I felt like it made me a better employee and a better person.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. There's a theme I've been seeing just literally today. We interviewed someone who's over student life, and she was saying how, taking lots of different roles, even if, she didn't know exactly what it was or how she was going to get there, but she was also scared of the process, but taking them and saying yes opened up so many doors for her. And like you echoing those sentiments, I'm like, am I supposed to be hearing this today? What is going on? But yeah, you literally just gave exactly like the example of like, hey, whatever it is to learn, let me have it. Let me figure it out. And also why you had a whole other, school trajectory that you're going through at the same time. Like I would have lost my whole mind like that. There's a lot.
So in school, you're older than the traditional student, right?
I am.
How was that? Like, what was that like?
Well, I'll tell you. We had to, in journalism, there was a class where we're talking about reporting, right? Mm-hmm. And so we all get paired with students. And so at the time I was 30, and there's a student who's interviewing me. I interview her first. I find out she's 20. And so it's her turn to interview me. And she said, so Linda, you're 30. So what's it like to be so old and be in college?
No, ma'am.
And moment,
Wow.
you know, where if you look back, where you feel like time slows down and you get that face, you know, if they did a slow motion of your face, you'd see. Um, but then it was like deep cleansing breaths. She doesn't understand what she just asked me, and I said,
Mm-mm.
you know what? It's really interesting, especially to, you know, talk with and work alongside people who just don't know as much as I do.
Yes.
Oh, but bam.
No, that's
But
real.
no, it was really different. And I will share that my professors, two in particular, who were just two of the most supportive professors I've ever had. And still to this day, I'm inspired by them. And they valued me because they said a lot of the students here at this college are here because their parents are writing their checks. They don't understand or appreciate the opportunity that they have. And here you are working full time, making multiple trips to this campus every single day, leaning in and working hard. And we appreciate that. And so there were times when they would give me just a little more flexibility, because I had one class where it was a 3-week intensive class, like right when you finish spring and you have that short summer class that they offer, and it's about 3 weeks and you go every day. So I went Monday through Thursday from like 1 to 4. And then at the end of every week, you had an assignment due. And the dean of the school said, hey, look, you're working full time. You're showing up every day. You're participating in class. If you need an extra day, we're going to give it to you.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
you know, it was hard. There were times when I would show up for meetings and other students wouldn't,
No.
because they're on campus. They don't get it. And I'm driving to campus. And so I had those experiences. But I also had some really positive experiences where students really kind of respected the fact that I was working full time. And there were a few students that were like, how do we take advantage of the fact that we have this person who works full time in a corporate world on our team? And
Yeah.
then that's the person that, you know what, you want to go hire them because they were like, we have an opportunity here. So by and large, it was really great, but at times it was uncomfortable being, you know, the 30-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That's really interesting. We had the reverse problem. Well, not problem, opportunity. When I was in college, we had a 9-year-old in one of our classes. And it was so funny. Anytime you're in a
What?
group with him, yeah. He came and spoke at a Nesbeck once, but he was 9 years old.
Wow.
And we'd be like, well, we could meet, but somebody has an 8 o'clock bedtime, so we can't. So I never thought of like the advantages of like, I'm like, well, also he has some very out of the box ideas.
Was he in a degree program?
Computer science. He was getting his bachelor's just like the rest of us. Started at 9.
What?
Yeah.
Was his name Doogie?
Right. It needed to be. His mom would come with him to classes and everything. And
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
He's like a genius, like genius child. He's a professor now, of course, grew up on the college campus. But yeah, I've seen the two ends. Now I get to hear the stories of the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, we
It
both
was
want to go to
very
bed
wild.
early, by the way.
Right. Like y'all should have been on the same team. Like, look, if we're going to be done by 8 o'clock, sign me up.
Listen, I hit 30 and I was like, I never took naps in my life, but I appreciate naps now. Like,
Absolutely.
appreciate them.
Yeah.
Because my brain, it just can't anymore. It can't.
Naps are
It
holy.
needs to rest. It needs to go to bed.
For
Wow.
real.
Okay, so the things that you're learning while you're at work, I'm sure that they were not easy, right? You didn't have a programming background or a technical background when you took this position necessarily, right? Like, had you been coding and learning languages and doing all of that?
So when I started, my start in tech was, I was 21.
Okay.
And my sister said, hey, what's the plan for your life? And one day, and I don't know, sisters, they ask questions. And what's the plan for your life? And I had a job as an office manager at a glass company, and we got to drink beer on Friday. And she gave me that sister look, that scrunchy face look, like, and said, "I have a plan for you." So
what are we doing?
Yeah, and so she got me a job at a hospital that she worked at through Kelly Temp Services, and said, "We're going to train you for 2 weeks on this computer system." I'm like, "Diane, I don't know anything about any computer system." She's like, "We're going to train you. Don't worry about it. You're going to learn that. You're going to learn data entry." And it was like, "Well, why do I have to learn that?" She goes, "Because you need to learn all the things for the foundation of what you're doing." And it was like, okay. So I showed up second shift as a 21-year-old person. Yeah, that was hard because all my friends are out.
Yeah, everybody's hanging out. And you're
right?
just like, I'm still at work.
Yeah, and I'm at work. And so that's how I learned. So I learned VAX VMS, which was a competitor to IBM. Most people have not heard of VAX VMS these days. Digital Equipment Corporation. IBMers know it. But so that's how I learned. And I learned how to do VMS and operating systems. And so when I took the role at Dow, I worked help desk. And that's how I learned, because I was doing tape. I was doing backups on tapes, y'all. Tapes.
Man.
Running things from a DOS prompt and all kind. Yeah. You're doing like, There's a card reader in my background. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So
and you have to, they don't understand, like, early programming, you had to have the cards in a specific order.
Yes.
And that's how you programmed, and you put them into the machine. And if they're in the wrong order, if they get stuck together, if you just drop them,
and that was how, and I will tell you, when I got this first job at the hospital, I didn't know this, but they told me about card readers and stuff, which I didn't know anything about. And so the next day we go in and they're like, whatever you do, you can't drop them. You need to keep them in order. And so they went to hand them to me. And when I did, they fell.
Oh,
and
no.
My stomach fell. And I found out it was hazing. They had them marked.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I know. Yeah.
What? That's wild.
It was a hazing. That's how we hazed each other, is you dropped the cards and made people freak out.
Oh my gosh. That is cruel. That is like, that makes like your heart jump. Like that.
Exactly. It's kind of like that feeling, the first thing you do when you overwrite something in production, that feeling when that table you overwrote and you get that feeling in your stomach.
Because there's no going back. There's no
everybody
undo.
deserves one, though. That's a learning, right? When you overwrite something in production or you drop the cards to the card reader, that's the learning. But, when I got that job, though, I had done a year in computer tech degree.
Oh, that's
so I had been exposed to COBOL. Hated COBOL. Basic. Assembly language.
Oh my gosh.
So I had been exposed to it. I was never great at coding. I could script, and that was kind of fun to write jobs and all that. And I learned HTML. But I was never really great at it because I'm not patient. So I'll tell you that my husband said to me once, we were working on a project together for a hot minute at the same company. And I kept going over to his desk going, I don't even understand why this doesn't work. Because look at this code. It's beautiful. And he's like, Linda, you forgot your semicolon. And it was like, well, why doesn't he even know that? And so finally he said, look, you are so smart and you are great at leading projects. I learned how to build websites using content, a CMS and all that. You're great, honey. You truly are. And you have vision, but you suck at this. So how about if you stop doing that? And so
I love it.
I did, because
Honesty.
Here's the thing, you can learn, there are a lot of people say, well, I don't want to do tech. I don't want to go in IT because I don't like coding. You know what? Here's the thing. You need to learn it as a foundation, at least 1 or 2 coding classes, because it gives you foundation so you can speak to developers and other people about the work that they are doing. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a developer just because you take a coding class. And I ended up learning so much going through Dow for the 20 years I was there, and learned how to build websites. And because I exposed myself to code, then I ended up leading. I mean, I spent my last 10 years there leading global digital and mobile app development. And I didn't smash a line of code.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
it makes sense because you can't lead something that you don't understand. You don't have to be the best at it, but if you know how it works, you can tell people things and you not get on their nerves where they're just like, this person has no idea how this works, versus they know what
exactly.
it does, they know the capabilities, and so the requests are not crazy, or they
And
know how
Yeah,
to
this is
frame
why
things.
I want my shirt. Because
The shirt's coming.
can I read a line or type a line of code? Sure. Do I teach a class where I introduce students to code? Absolutely. Do I code? No. Okay? I'm a pretender over here. Like,
Oh
I
my
can
gosh.
exist in your space, speak your language, but leave me out of it. Okay? Y'all who love it, y'all do that.
exactly. And but listen, here's the thing that I do love though, and my husband is he's a COBOL cowboy.
I've never heard that
And
Wait a
a
expression.
minute.
COBOL cowboy. There's a website
Cobalt
called COBOL
Cowboy.
Cowboy.
Oh,
Yeah,
I gotta look this up.
She's
COBOL
looking it up.
Cowboys.
She's
And
looking it up.
but I love to hear developers talk about when they're coding something. I just love to just listen.
Yes.
And here's the other thing. The very first time, ladies, that I had to be on a call with mobile app development, I had led all kinds of website development at that point. So I was a Jedi at it. I got it. I understood it. Um, and I had an IT leader say, "Hey, Linda, I need you to get over here on this call for this agency and this other agency are getting together. They're talking about how they're going to build something for the iPad. The iPad was new. And I need you to be on that call and listening to see what they're going to talk about." And it was like, I said, "Lori, I don't know anything about the iPad. I mean, I knew what it was, but it's like, I don't know anything about building an app for an iPad. I just know how to
Right.
swipe and say surf." And she's like, "I need you to be on that call. So get on the call." And I was nervous because I was like, I don't know anything about mobile app development. I mean, when I smashed code or understood how to do some coding, it was HTML,
Mm.
which by then was kind of an easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat on that call. And for the most of the call, I had no idea what they were talking about. But I would ask questions and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah." And so before you know it, she was like, "Oh, yeah, I need you to be on this other call." And I'm like, "Well, what?" And then finally it was like, okay, here's the thing. She's given me an opportunity to learn this. So I just need to lean in and listen. Even if I don't know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
it's okay that I ask questions. There isn't a dumb question. It's like, okay, well, wait, when you're talking about you're going to do it in native, what does that mean versus this?
Mm.
And actually, in some cases, they appreciated the question. Because if a developer loves to talk about anything, they love to talk about how great and awesome they are and what they're going to do. They will teach
Yes.
you.
And how
I
they've
will,
made the most elegant solution that no
yes.
one else can think of.
A year later, I was sitting on all calls for mobile app development. And I'd be like, well, wait a minute. If we do it in this sprint, then are we going to do X, Y, and Z? And they'd be like, Linda, yeah. So let's think about this. And it was like, I got it.
You
And before
started
you
Yeah.
know it,
speaking
I
their
was leading
language.
mobile app
Mm-hmm.
development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to, it's scary or you feel like you don't. I hear this all the time. Well, what if I don't know what they're talking about? And it's like, we don't always know what everybody's talking. It's tech. Hello.
Yeah.
You don't
Right.
always know that. You're not going to know everything, but what you can do is you can lean in and learn it. And before you know it, you'll figure it out. You just
Yeah.
gotta have an appetite for learning it.
And there's a space for both sets of skill because I feel like with developers, they're very, I don't want to say narrow minded, but you're very close to the product. But you also need the person who's looking at the entire time scale that's like, okay, how are you going to fit all of this into this? How is this going to be structured and work? So there's room for both. It's not like one is better
Exactly.
than the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after many, many, many years of killing it at Dow, somehow you ended up not there anymore.
I did.
And you also got a law degree. So I'm trying to understand.
Right. If doing the most was a person, ladies and gentlemen.
Where does that fit in the timeline of Linda?
Yes.
Well, I was it seems like some things always have to do with tequila, and I was at a happy hour with a friend of mine, and he said he was in town, and he was an engineer, and he had left Dow to go to college and to go to law school. And so he said, I'm in town. Let's go have happy hour and some margaritas and some tequila. And I said, okay. And so we go there, and I said, yeah, I'm thinking about getting my master's in philanthropy, because I thought IU has a really good school of philanthropy. And so I thought, I'm thinking about doing that. And he said, you should go to law school. And it was like, what do I want to go to law school for?
Yeah, where does that come from?
Why? And I said, I could go to law school. I've never even been interested in, besides the fact the law is too black and white. And he said, first of all, Linda, I'm an engineer. At the end of every problem is a solution. That's how engineers think. You go through a process and there's an answer. He said, that's not how it is in the law at all. At the end of a process, the answer is, well, it depends. And he's right, by the way. So he said, think if you marry the experience you have that you've earned in tech and working, and your journalism degree, and your communication skills, think if you marry that with a law degree, how powerful you could be as a leader and influencer. And I was like, yeah, well, maybe. And then the next thing you know, it's kind of like you hear the Pied Piper and the music stops. And I look around, I'm sitting in the middle of the LSAT. And it's like, well,
how I get here?
Forget the courses, forget everything else.
Tequila.
Right.
Is how you
right.
It was the tequila. And so, I went to law school. Now, Dow didn't pay for that degree. They didn't pay for the law degree. But so I earned the law degree, kept working in my tech field, and that helped me grow and be more informative on data privacy policy and social media policy and all of that. And then here came the news. I graduated with my Juris Doctor, and then I got laid off. Bam.
Oh no!
And I got
was it around like 2008 time frame?
No,
when
it was 2012.
Okay.
I finished my last day was January 31st, 2013. I got this beautiful, awesome severance package, and it was beautiful. And my husband's like, well, you're crying over this. What about that law degree you got, and you passed the bar and stuff? Are you going to do stuff with that? And so I did. I started volunteering and got a job as a civil prosecutor working for a friend. Yeah. And so I did that for a couple of years, but I missed tech. And, there are people who think, oh, well, lawyers know everything. And it's like, not tech.
That's an excellent point.
Don't. Yes.
Not tech. When I showed them how to attach a subpoena to a meeting notice, you would have thought that I split the atom. It was like, oh,
split the atom.
That's amazing.
I would say like, for me, I have no desire to do anything legal, but like I just started getting into the expert witness space, and it's been extremely fun, like combining law with the knowledge of tech, and like because we think about technology and development in a completely different way in research versus like patents and patent law and things like that. And like that's been one of the funnest things that I've done in the past couple of years. And I'm like, wow, like who knew?
Plus the fact too, I mean, even today with artificial intelligence blowing up like it is, you want to talk about what keeps a lawyer up at night? Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Well, I would say being the side person to Kyla's expert witness land, I know nothing about what she's expert witnessing about, but the legalese, NDAs are real, but the legalese that she now leverages to provide academic clapbacks it's been elevated. And so I very much enjoy that proximity to law. My mom has a law degree. She's always maintained that I need to go get one. Sorry, Mom. I know you hear this. Still not doing it. But yeah, so
yeah,
I get it.
It's awesome. And it really, education for me, and when we talk about it, really helped me become a better leader. And it helped me become a more thoughtful leader, but it also helped me see the world so differently. That's what I love about education is once you get in and you start analyzing and you get that critical thinking and you get in classrooms with different people, you just how you approach problems and how you understand and see the world changes. And it's awesome. So I'm really glad I had it, although it didn't run alongside with tech very well at the time, but I'm really glad I did it.
Now you could take over the world for real.
For real, for real.
Okay, so this led you post I'm a prosecutor into the opportunity to work at a community college.
Yes.
And a community college that you still very much love and talk about all the time.
Yes.
So tell us about that transition.
So I did a couple of different roles, and I worked at Stanley Black & Decker as a global IT leader there. And, for a while it was challenging. It's hard to be a woman in tech, and a Black woman in tech. It's even harder. And so it was really challenging, and I was having lunch with a friend, and I said, well, I'm just going to take my wagon and go home. I'm pouting. It's hard. And she said, you need to get more involved in community. So I did. And I started learning more about the challenges facing students and women and all of us. And so I saw the job at Ivy Tech and for vice president. And when I first read it, I thought that I did that thing that women do, which is, if there's 5 things and we only have 2 of the things, we don't apply for the job. Right. And I was like, well, I don't really have that. And then it was like, apply anyway. The worst they can do is say no. And so I got interviews and I ended up getting the job. And it was really such an awesome experience to evolve, to understand, because I got to talk tech all day long, but I got to help, contribute to curriculum and listen to faculty and their needs to upskill, which is so important. We don't place enough value on teachers. In faculty, we do not. You should make way more money than they do, and industry needs to help write a check to pay pay faculty. But
I will be on that board. I will be on that.
But seriously, it was an awesome opportunity to interface to employers to say, hey, look, you can hire our students. Our students are here to get an education. Just because they didn't go to Purdue where you went or Butler or wherever it is that you went doesn't mean that they're not working as hard. And we're teaching real deal skills. And we had transfer opportunities to 4-year institutions. So I loved the opportunity to be a part, and I got to dabble in all kinds of things. Now, sometimes faculty loved me, and sometimes they were like, hey, what do you know about teaching? But especially when they wanted to talk about the pedagogy of things. And it was like, oh, do we have to talk about that P word? Because I just wanted to tell you, let's do some cloud stuff.
Right.
But it was awesome. It was an awesome opportunity. And especially when you know that you're working to help people do better, be better, have more.
That is awesome. So did this help to shape your trajectory with Reboot? So
I just want to point out that you've had careers in so many different sectors before we go into
that is very true. Role. And also
medical, right? Agriculture, IT, law, and education. That's all we've talked about, right? There's probably more because we didn't talk about every position you've held, but that is a lot of understanding of what we do as people who work in the U.S.
Yeah. And not just positions, leadership roles.
Yes.
And I see the analogy going back to your play where you're like, I'm in the back making the puppets dance. You all do the things, and I will I don't have to be on stage doing all of the things or even understand all the things, but you're going to do the things in the order that I ask you to do them.
Yeah. But, when you think about it, because I had somebody say, Linda, you're kind of all over the place. So you worked in tech, you were a communications person. I worked in public affairs. You've been all over the place. And I said, well, I look at it this way. Communication, law, and tech are enablers of solutions. So by learning all of those things, I can help better inform and enable solutions. So,
You're
and then
education,
of course, right?
Yeah.
A solutions engineer.
Yeah, you're a solutions engineer.
That's it.
Yeah. So when you asked me about Reboot, it was one, I suffer from insomnia from time to time because sometimes my mind doesn't stop, even though my body wants to go to sleep. That's why I have a weighted blanket now, and I binge watch The Simpsons because they both.
Kyla and you have that in common.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
They have the weighted blanket and The Simpsons have a soporific effect for me when my mind is going like this. Oh,
yeah. Holding up. What is that, a journal?
This is a Homer Simpson journal. Like, there's always something Simpsons related somewhere near me.
I love that. Well, I will tell you that, I was suffering. I was in that space and I decided to Google stuff. And I thought, I'm going to Google grants and there was a program that we had at Ivy Tech, and I wanted money for it to help women and provide wraparound services for women who were enrolled in the School of IT. And because sometimes those are the obstacles that get in your way are, I don't have gas to put in my car to get to campus. Sometimes it's not this that's in the way, it's the actual just stuff of life, right? So I thought, I want some money for this. I'm going to go find some money. It's 2:23 in the morning. Somebody has some money to give me. And so I started Googling, and I came across the profile of DeWanda Franklin Davis. And I was like, who is she? And so then I started reading about Reboot, and then it was like, who's connected to her so I can know her? And I looked through my connections, and it was like, all right, Terry, you need to introduce me to this lady. And I got to know her, and over time we built a relationship, and I learned more about what Reboot does. And so when the opportunity to be Chief Impact Officer came up, it was right. It was right here because, one of the things that I did at Ivy Tech was, how do we get and attract more women to tech and demystify computer science and help women who have gotten messages from childhood that you're not smart enough to go into tech, or that's where boys go. You would be good in marketing. And maybe you would be good in marketing, and that's okay. But, maybe you just really dig tech, or maybe you would really dig it if you would give it an opportunity. Right. And so it was really something that I embraced at Ivy Tech. So when the opportunity came to belong to an organization whose focus is helping Black, Latina, and Native American women earn computing degrees and providing, and helping create sustained cultures where they can thrive. Well, why wouldn't I want to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's probably been completely different than the rest of everything else that you've done.
It is because now it's more about, in previous roles, you're in sprints, right? You are defining sprints. You're knocking down obstacles to get data. You're talking about putting systems together and delivering solutions. In my role and in this role, it's about relationships. Which, if you want to try to go to analogies, you could try to figure out how to put relationship building into a sprint, right? I haven't gone there with that yet because nobody's asked me. So don't ask me unless you're going to give it to me for homework and then I want to grade. But, really it's about building relationships and helping people understand that the work that Reboot is doing, and the work that I'm doing as Chief Impact Officer, to help companies create inclusive cultures to attract and retain to BLNA women, that the message is, this isn't just about feeling good, right? We're not doing this because we need to feel good, although it will make you feel good. It's not because it's the right thing to do, but it is the right thing to do. But it's also, it's business imperative. How are you going
Absolutely.
to, these days, in a competitive landscape, as it is, where you're iterating, releasing constant apps, constant solutions, how are you going to, as an organization, deliver products and services through tech, which that's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
If you have a homogenous view and you are narrowly focused here, having Black women, Native women, Latino, LGBTQ, Asian, having all of these perspectives is what gives you a better product. So we're not talking about singing Kumbaya and doing, having some gourd
Braiding each
ceremony
other's hair. Yeah.
and
Right.
braiding hair. We're talking about, hey, you want to you want to make that real money, have some diversity at your table. I bet you had, I mean, think about the Gucci balaclava situation where they came out with that blackface
Oh my
balaclava.
gosh. Yeah.
Listen, had there been one person at your team to say, time out, you don't need to do that, this is wrong,
Right.
right? You spent million, you may not, they may not have gotten sued, but they spent millions of dollars in that product development
Oh
process,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way we really need to look at this. Is if I'm sitting on your board, I want you to make that money so I can go on that bougie vacation and have that fabulous watch and get those glasses that Rihanna had with the eyelashes. I want all the things, right? I want all the things. And how you do that is you have a diverse workforce so you can create better products and so companies and consumers consume more of your products.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
why
People
we
don't
do.
get it.
No, they don't get it.
Yeah. They do not get it. They just see it as, oh, it's like community service. It's like, no, actually, this is national security. This is a matter of national security.
Right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
the talent that we have in the United States, like they're just not going to be able to rely on men.
Yes.
Right. Right. And there's enough room at this table for everybody. There is so much tech, even in the face of people saying that AI is going to displace jobs. I think everybody needs to take some deep cleansing breaths here for a moment.
Yes. Take a
Right.
walk. Calm
Right.
down.
Hey, now look, is AI going to change the way you code? Yeah, it is. We already have low code, so we already knew that was coming, right?
Yeah,
But is AI going
exactly.
to change the way things happen and maybe call centers? When you talk to Amazon and you didn't get those coffee filters and that, Black History Month t-shirt on time and you go to Amazon, you're not talking to a person at first, right? You're
Right.
talking to a bot. But so there are going to be those things, but with innovation comes more opportunity, right? And
Yeah.
there's not enough people to fill that pipeline right now for that.
Yeah, that's why NSF has lots of grant opportunities to help people reskill because of this emerging tech workforce and how a lot of these jobs are going to require some sort of retraining, reskilling technically. So they're like, hey, who can we give money to help people to make that transition, of whatever their current role is that might have a tech additive to get them up to speed? Because some people may just retire and say, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with tech, but we do need to replace the folks or at least give them a chance to
Absolutely.
train. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is wild. But back to Reboot. I wanted to
Mhm.
know, because you've been with Reboot for a while, I wanted to know like what are some of like the really fun just like stories or moments or like outcomes that really just stick with you when you're like, you know what, this is why I do what I do. There's
Um, I'm thinking of talking with students, which that's the best. It really is. And not only just to hear some of the cool stuff they're doing, but to bear witness to some of the cool stuff they're achieving,
Mhm.
but also in any way that we can help students. So, first of all, there's one student who just posted, I mean, she just got these amazing opportunities on, and she's posted on LinkedIn. She's so excited, and it is so awesome. She's living her dream, pursuing her tech education, but she's living her dream, leading in hackathons, doing these things. And it's such amazing and awesome story to see that, right? I participated with a group of women in rewriting the code. It was a call with students, and I think the one of the questions that sticks out to me the most was she said, "Well, have you ever suffered with imposter syndrome? And I said, that's a loaded question for me because I think we overdo it with the imposter syndrome stuff. I think sometimes you're just nervous. And you know what? And you're going to be nervous when you start your first job. So first of all, get yourself a mentor and whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. If that means you have to read a few more books or if you have to Google a bit more, then do that. But it'll make you feel better. And watching their faces like, okay, it's normal to be nervous. I don't know. Just something makes you feel good about that because they're internalizing that. And it is normal to be nervous. And when you tell students that, especially when you've been around for a minute, like I have, then they look at you like, well, she's still here. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna be nervous. You're not going to know something. That's okay. And so I think for me, that's been what's most awesome is to know that we're having impact with students at Reboot.
Yeah.
So we recently announced that we got funding from NSF to do a research project that focuses on creating community for Black women and girls in computing and tech. And what's interesting about that project is, for NSF, you need evidence, right? Mm-hmm. You need data, you need numbers. And that's what I love about Reboot, is that you're not just, hey, everybody do this thing over here that looks good. You have the actual data to back up why it's important. You are working with companies and collecting data from them to be able to show where we're missing, where we aren't represented. Mm-hmm. And those are ways that we can target either practices that we have in hiring or initiatives that we develop to fill these gaps. So Kyla and I always look at your website for that information because it is something that it's like a hallmark of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share too that right now I'm leading an initiative and we got a really generous grant from Walmart.org. And so there's an initiative where I'm doing a pilot. And so we came out with research last year. We interviewed over 2,000 BLNA and non-BLNA technologists, men and women, and 27 companies. And we identified 9 cornerstone policies and practices. We revealed these that BLNA women and non-BLNA said, hey, you know what? If you have these policies, we're going to stay because we've seen it, right? We've seen more BLNA women. We've seen more earning baccalaureate degrees, but now we're seeing retention shoot down. Well, because Girls Who Code and Accenture came out with a study, in 2019, 50% of young women by the age of 35 are leaving tech because of non-inclusive cultures. So, we've identified these cornerstone policies and practices. And so I'm running a pilot right now with 3 to 5 companies who put their hands up and said, okay, we'll do it. We're going to implement. We want to implement and be part of your pilot to implement some of these policies and practices. In some cases, ladies, they already have them. It's just amplification. It's just letting their employees know these are things we have in place that you can indeed take advantage of. And in some cases, they're like, we need to do that. So that's it's just getting started. We just started a pilot. And so it's just getting started. That's but amazing. I love the fact that companies put their hands up to do it. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is we're working on a digital toolkit because we're going to make this easy for any company to come and find information about creating inclusive cultures. We are. So we're going to take the landscape and we're going to be additive, but we're also going to say, hey, look, NC-WIT, NSF, this over here, this content exists. Here's a bite snack meal approach to that content. Because how many people are reading a 40-page report?
Nobody.
Just the weirdos like me.
Well, you're reading it now because, you need to do it. For some, you're reading it because you have to do a paper. You have some homework to do, right? Mm-hmm. But, most of your professionals aren't reading that. So what we want to do is say, hey, here's a one-stop shop for you to come and read best practices and policies around these topics.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to get deeper into it, we're going to link you to those sources so you can really lean in. So those are two things I'm doing right now. And I really think it's exciting because it's about, hey, we're going to help you keep that awesome talent that we've been nurturing.
Yeah. I'm curious, can you tell us some of those 9 policies that the not off the top of your head, but if I'm definitely curious, like what is it that people say, is that difference maker?
So the one thing that we were really surprised to hear about was sick time. Now, because most companies have sick time. So we were like, what? Most companies have sick time. We don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But then what we learned as we started unpacking it is in some cases, companies just have time reporting systems where if you're in IT, you have to report your time you're spending on projects. And sometimes it only allows you to report big chunks of time. So if you're just running to the dentist for an hour or you feel a little sick and you're going to immediate care for a hot minute, you have to report that as in a big chunk of time. So sometimes it's just a limitation of system, but other times it's, well, can I be away from work? We're taught, and I know I was taught this, and a lot of people are taught this, especially women, work hard, keep your head down, don't miss no matter what. So you're going to show up, you're going to be sick, but you're going to be at the table or on the call, which is a detriment because a healthy, happy employee is a better productive employee, right?
Yes.
And so I think companies have to be able to say, we have a sick time policy for a reason, and we want you to take advantage of it. There are other cases where, if you have kiddos, I don't have kiddos, but if you have kiddos and they're sick, can you take advantage of sick time to take them to the doctor or care for them? So in some cases, it's not that a company doesn't have sick time. It's that they need to better amplify it or maybe pivot a little bit to say, hey, you can use it for taking care of your elderly, your grandmother, your mother, your dad, or taking care of your kiddo. Another one is next steps for advancement. So, you get your performance management because you filled out that form, and they tell you how you're great and they tell you where your opportunity is. And then they tell you how you're great, right? The opportunity sandwich. But then that's about it. But what they identified was, well, what are the next steps for advancement? What can I do next? Is it that, do I need to take a coding class so I'm more attuned to what developers are doing? Do I need to go get an agile class? So companies can do a better job of saying, hey, we're going to bake in a practice of helping you understand what the next steps for advancement for your career is, or the other one was Sherpa. I call it Sherpa, but providing a mentor as you're moving through an interview process. And companies are like, oh my gosh, we'd have to hire scads of people and all of that. But I had an experience when I was interviewing for a job years ago with a company, and they said, so Corey's going to talk to you. And I was like, okay, I don't know who Corey is. And Corey says, well, I'm here to help you identify the job you should be applying for and to help you understand that this code word means that you better have had consulting experience. It's not that you can consult, that you've actually worked for a consultant. That's what that means. And if you apply for this job, we're not going to talk to you about that job. And so he said, I'm here to help you understand what jobs you should be applying for. And then when you send me the job that you want to apply for, I'm going to advocate for you to the hiring manager. And I was like, you are? That's awesome.
Right.
Now, they're not doing that for every single employee coming in, but you could do that for a certain levels, right? To make sure you get the right talent in. So sorry, I just got really excited because those are 3 right off the top of the dome.
Yeah. Those are great. And I'm always thinking about what is the academic analogy to that? Like, how can we, have some of those policies on our side in terms of like flexibility and mentorship and help and just candidness and just transparency in processes.
I mean, in some cases, it's
yeah,
just,
sure is.
in some cases, just as simple as, hey, we need to amplify that we have this policy, or we need to think about the other one is mental health benefits. That came up too. That's a thing now. That's a
It
thing.
Yeah,
really
it
is.
really is.
I was
Even
in a
with our
meeting
students.
Yes, I was in a meeting today, and our student life VP literally said 30% of our incoming students are coming in with some sort of medication for mental health.
That's a
30%.
lot.
Wow.
Yes.
That
And
is a
like
lot.
yeah. So mental health, because we were, just talking about like, just students and how it's changed over the years and how, us as staff and faculty need to be prepared to change with the way students are also changing. And she dropped that little nugget in there, and we're like, wow, like I knew there was an increase, but having that number is like, wow, we need to definitely make sure, everyone is supported. But and these students are also going into the workforce, so we need to
Yeah.
figure out, how to further support them.
So I have
Absolutely.
just one more question because
Okay.
I feel like it's been bothering me for a while. I want to know like who inspires you because
Ooh.
I feel like the context that you gave us of your family and like how you grew up, and I think through almost every episode we've had just about everyone mention like, and this person, without them my life would not be the same. And I'm sure your husband is that person partially for you in some ways. But who was it?
There are two. One is my mom. I know that probably sounds like, oh, it's your
Nope.
mom.
Nope.
Oh,
But,
that's awesome.
my mom told me and saw how I was getting treated as a kid, and knew it was going to be hard for me because for a while I went through that place where nobody liked me, not the black kids, not the white kids, and no one really liked me. And I started pulling back, and she's like, you always pull out the middle name, right? She said, Linda Denise, keep your head up now, honey. You belong in every room you walk in. And so you walk in there and you hold your head high because you're a smart girl. And so I would remember that. She really did have that impact on me. And then I have a mentor who is amazing. And she always challenges me. I had breakfast with her last week, and she's like, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, you didn't answer my question. Very direct.
Mm-hmm.
But, she inspires me to keep going. And I had a period of transition for a minute before I joined Reboot. And she said, you need to be the Oprah of Tech. That's what you need to do. You have equity, and you have some equity, and you have some tech equity, and you have
Everybody
some
gets
tech
equity.
education. You have some tech education. She goes, no, but go do it and be yourself. And so she really does continue to inspire me. But even though my mom's not here anymore, I hear her every single time I feel, I rarely get nervous, but anytime I feel a little bit, I hear my mom go, Linda Denise, head up, baby.
Oh, that's amazing.
So good.
That's amazing.
I'm so glad I asked that question.
I'm glad you did too. I wanted to know, like, for our listeners, if they're like, you know what, I want to be a part of that, how do they plug in to Reboot?
So how do they plug into Reboot? Well, there are companies, and, you can join Reboot and become a member of the Reboot Tech Coalition. There are different levels, and there's a way that you can get more engaged and involved and learn more about that through the website. But also go read the research. There's an executive summary. You don't have to read the 40-page report. It's cool. It's a graphic. You can read more about that and think about, how do I make this change in my organization? How do I need to think about it? But, the other thing to do is to think about, how do we create more equity in our workforce? And for somebody who's listening, maybe they have hiring, power to hire, and think about the fact that this isn't, again, going back to feel good. It's about business. And there are some awesome, awesome young women going through the Reboot Scholar program, so learn that, do that. And then the other thing is we have mentors. We have a mentorship program at Reboot So, if you're interested in being a mentor, you can reach out through the website and become a mentor to a student. We all need mentors, right? All of us, no matter where we are at in life, we can always use a mentor.
Agree. Strongly agree.
Yes.
From the
And we'll
faculty
have,
member who studies
yes.
mentorship.
Everybody needs a mentor. Nobody knows what they're doing, and everybody needs a mentor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll make sure to have the link on this episode's notes and on the webpage so people can access it readily.
Okay, so
I wanted to share one thing though.
Oh yeah, go for it.
For students, if there are students listening, I participated in some mock interviews at a college, and there were a couple of things I wanted students to take away from this. Number one, unless you're interviewing with another student, there's no such thing as a mock interview. If you're interviewing with industry professionals or community leaders, trust me, we remember you. And especially if it's part of your mock interview process to give me a copy of your resume, I'm going to remember you. So, it's okay to be nervous and all of that, but think about this. There's no such thing as a mock interview unless you're with your dorm mate, right?
Right.
The other thing I wanted to say is show up to things. We're starting to see across the industry and a lot of the community events that I attend that people will register for stuff to meet people and they're not showing up. It's really important to show up because you could be meeting somebody who will give you a job or meet somebody who has influence. So if you register for something, show up, it's going to be good. And then the other thing I was going to offer is practice behavioral interviewing questions. That's when you have your classmate or your dorm mate or your roommate or your bestie and you practice those behavioral questions because that's exactly the questions we're going to ask you. And I had a situation where I was talking to a student and I was like, tell me about a time when you failed at a project. Well, I haven't really failed at anything. And it was like, never. And the answer was, well, I've never really thought about that. So, okay, but think about that when you're going to interview. And so if you Google behavioral questions, it could be that you download them and you practice them with someone. So then when you're in an interview, you're able to summarize because we're not going to just say, can you smash code in Python? We may ask you that, but we're more interested in how you're going to react and respond in the workforce. So I wanted to lay that out. Though they were 3 things I wrote down that students need to make sure, no matter where you're at, the new student or the 30-year-old old student like me, that those are the things that are going to be really important to think about.
Yeah, that's extremely important. Like I have a student who's preparing to enter the workforce and she's like, what do I need to know? I'm like, I don't know. Like the last time I had a tech interview was like, oh wait. So like, I don't know what to tell you, but this is really good information, for everyone that's out there and how it's not, like you said, just about your technical skills. It's also about how are you as a person and as a thinker and a problem solver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of that. Okay, I said I was going to ask my last question, but I want people to know how to find you.
Yes.
So can you share that with us?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Linda Calvin on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active, so it should be easy to find me. You can also find me at www.transcendent-talks.com. That's my new website. You can read about my Barbie collection. You can see about demystifying computer science. So you can find me there too. And you can't miss it. It's bright red and fuchsia.
I like it.
Love it. I wore color today because I knew we were interviewing you. So I was like, let me just, throw on some bronze and some bright red. What is it? Pioneer Maybelline.
Pioneer Maybelline.
And bright orange because Linda is one of the most colorful and amazing people.
Yes. Glitter, color, all things fabulous.
And it's Black History Month. So you have your orange, red, and your yellow.
And green.
Yes.
Love it. Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for
Yes, thank
joining us.
you. Yeah, we appreciate you taking your time out because you are a very, very busy woman. So we definitely appreciate you making the time to talk on the podcast.
And for supporting us always.
Yes.
Absolutely. And anybody who's listening to this, you need to go get some of that merch because somebody took my sneakers. There's a woman that said, I really,
Yes.
no, I mean, she
That's
took them
right.
because I said,
Yes.
she goes, boy, I really like those sneakers, Linda. And I said, well, I don't know if they're your size. They're size 8. She goes, that's my size. And I said,
Like, well.
so she's wearing my sneakers.
Aw.
And another girlfriend's wearing my earrings, those earrings.
Oh, so we gotta get you some more merch.
Don't
We're
worry
gonna get
about
you
it.
some more stuff.
And somebody else has some stickers. I still have 2 left. So and you guys are awesome. You ladies are awesome and amazing. And I love what you're doing. And I love the message you're giving, and you're positive and you're smiling. And I'm so glad I got to see you last year with that NC Wit. You're just amazing. So thank you for hosting me and for being the bomb.
Oh, thank you too.